As we move on this morning, our professional education, Bridging the Digital Divide for Older Adults, is being presented by our very own Darra, Wray, and Tina Barnett. Give you not that they both aren't extremely wonderful and everybody already knows how fully qualified and exceptional individuals they are in our community, but I'll give you a little bio in case you're not really familiar with how super fantastic these two ladies are. Darra Wray is a business professional, caregiving consultant, and software developer from Boise, Idaho. She has an undergraduate degree in psychology from Whittier College and earned an MBA from the Anderson School at UCLA. Darra has more than 30 years of business experience and over 40 years of personal experience as a family caregiver and patient advocate. Darra became a certified senior advisor, a CSA, in 2018 and founded My Care Companions to develop resources, services, and tools for family caregivers. She introduced the My Data Diary household information software in 2019. And in 2020, she founded Learn with a mission to provide free education to the community on aging and caregiving topics. Tina Barnett is also a certified senior advisor, a CSA, and co-founder of Elderberry Care, a consulting firm with a focus on assisting older adults with technology. Tina has a passion for helping older adults and caregivers harness technology to enhance and improve their lives. Tina is a trainer and administrator of Learn's technology education program, delivering free technology training to older adults in the Treasure Valley. As a co-founder of Creatures of Light Productions, Tina has consulted to numerous nonprofits, helping raise awareness by engaging audiences through compassionate storytelling via film, social media, and direct donor outreach. Texas-born and raised, Tina has a BA in Business Administration from the University of Texas at Tyler. Tina and Darra, welcome for presenting to us today. We're very fortunate to get to have both of you do this.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll admit it's a little odd, right? You know, host the meeting and then be the professional educator. But it is my pleasure to share this information that I do. Tina and I are partnering, and we bring this information to communities and professional organizations in regionally and nationally. And so it really is a delight to be able to share this content with my Learn family and all of you. So what we want to talk to you about today is the digital dilemma, and how to bridge the digital divide and the digital dilemma for older adults. And the first thing I want to speak about is, you hear these terms, and the big one is digital divide. And the digital divide usually refers to access, and do people have the technology and the connectivity to engage digitally? And I extend that. We do have a digital divide, but we have a digital dilemma that extends beyond the digital divide, because having the tool or the technology and the interconnection, the connectivity, if you don't have the competence and confidence and capability to use those tools, you have a big dilemma. So we have a digital divide and a digital dilemma, and we're going to talk to you about both of those and what we think needs to be done to solve those things for older adults. And what's at the root of this? At the root of this digital dilemma, digital divide, is this digital transformation, where billions of dollars are being spent annually to transform everyday activities digitally. And whether that's happening in healthcare, banking, education, industry, and even in your own home, Ring doorbells and all of these wonderful innovations that we have, this digital transformation is all around us. And we're going to give you a flavor for what that looks like. And we know this, but when you see it all at once with these expanding digital requirements in banking, travel reservations, boarding passes, customer service engagements, pre-appointment medical paperwork, memberships, shopping, applications, benefits management, event tickets, insurance claims, paying your bills, engaging with streaming services, enrolling in classes, accessing health records, setting appointments, immunizations, all of these things, everyday life has now become overwhelmingly digital. And if you don't have access, competence and confidence to engage, you're at a huge disadvantage today, and it's only going to grow. With this digitization in our world comes some additional concerns we need to be thinking about. And a big one is increasing security and privacy risk and regulation. The more digital we become, the more exposed we are, and bad actors come in and want to take our data. So we need to and must be very concerned and aware about security and scam savvy seniors and all of these programs we're trying to do to help our seniors. And from a health perspective, we want to make sure that our health information is protected. It could be used against us in ways that we don't want. And we want to make sure that people have the protections, both financial, health, all of these things. And when I share this information, I often say as an individual, I love HIPAA, right? I love the fact that my information is protected. Nobody knows my personal health information unless I choose for them to know it. As a family caregiver, HIPAA is painful, right? So there's this double-edged sword of access and security, information and privacy, and all of these things that we need to balance and understand and engage with the digital transformation. We also know we have an aging population, right? Where we expect life expectancy to continue to grow, and we're continuing to get older. And as we age, we need to continue to learn how to engage and uh, keep our skills active and at the top to be able to engage in this digital transformation. And we're aging, but we're not necessarily aging well or staying healthy. So we're aging and we need to engage and we need to gain new skills and we need to have access. And in many cases, we are functionally declining. So while we're aging, we actually are living longer with disease and with capacity issues. And so you have this, where historically in previous generations, very often people would get sick and then they would decline very rapidly and die. We now get sick and we live with chronic disease and illness, but that creates new challenges for aging and engaging and technology and executive function and things that we need to do. So this increased aging and decline in functional capabilities, including executive function, is a real challenge for digital access and digital dilemma and digital divide. And not to mention the increasing caregiver burden when it becomes to the point where someone can no longer care for themselves, you have a caregiver who needs to step in and engage not only for themselves, but for other people digitally and in person. And this caregiver burden is increasing. And this is a fairly old statistic, but I think it's probably still valid, if not more aggressive. But in 2010, there were 7 potential caregivers aged 45 to 64 for each person over the age of 80. By 2030, that's expected to be 4 to 1. And by 2050, that's only going to be 3 to 1. So, with the changing demographics in our world, our workload as caregivers is doubling or more between 2010 and 2050. And what does that look like? Family caregivers spend an average of 13 hours per month managing administrative tasks for a loved one in their care, including all of these digital interactions. And as we know with family caregivers, it's kind of the frog in the pot syndrome. And oftentimes it starts small and you're taking on, a little bit of shopping and a little bit of, household management. And before you know it, you are managing the business of someone else's life. And it starts small. And then you think, well, how long could this last? I can do this. It's not a challenge, not a problem. But I ask you, how long does that family caregiving role usually last? This 13 hours a month. On average, it's 4 years. And for 24% of family caregivers, it's more than 5 years. And for 15% of caregivers, it's more than 10 years. So managing your own business of life and digital interactions on top of managing someone else's and HIPAA permissions and privacy, this gets very, very challenging for seniors and their caregivers. to mention these little unexpected things that we can't control, like COVID, that really delivered major unforeseen challenges in how to engage, and on almost a knife edge created a situation where you had to engage digitally, and we had to force ourselves to learn how to do things like Zoom and digitize our documents and really increase the demand for this level of engagement and this kind of engagement. And this wasn't all bad, but it really has accelerated this transformation. And this one study showed by McKinsey and Company, and this was done between 2017 and right after COVID. It was the first year after COVID. We accelerated adoption by 6 years in the first year after COVID in the United States. So this digital acceleration just absolutely accelerated, and we're still feeling it. We all see it every day in our engagement. I mean, I can't get I can't get an appointment for my dog without engaging in a digital interface for an appointment with my veterinarian, right? This is the expectation, and we need to be able to do this. So I'm going to now have Tina share with you what that looks like around tech adoption and engagement, and how do we help solve this challenge and make it possible.
Thanks, Darra. As we look at these numbers, you can see that it's true that there is a rising tide of tech adoption among older adults. And this is not necessarily something that they want to do, right? But the world forces it through all the requirements that Darra's talking about. So the stats that we have on internet usage, you can see from 2008 to 2023, there's been a huge leap in adults using the internet. Smartphone ownership has leapt also from 13% in 2011 to 76%. I'd say that number is higher now. All of the adults, 201, occasionally a flip phone comes into one of my classes, but adults all seem to have smartphones now. They also get handed a smartphone and say, here you go, here's a brick, no instruction, right? Tablet ownership has gone from 5% to 52% in 2019. That's a little bit old. That trend is increasing. And then, of course, video calling. You can see that this number is from the beginning, 2020, beginning of the pandemic, from 2013 to 2020, it rose to 70% of adults using video calls. And that has also increased beyond that number, I'm sure, since in the last 4 years. So those numbers show that older adults are adopting technology, but there's a hidden cost, which is frustration and fear and also vulnerability. So technology benefits, we all know what those are. Expanded access to health care. In the Valley here, my chart is a very important tool to have to access health care for a lot of us. Improved access to resources and services. All of the information that Learn has online, all this great education still has to be accessed online on the internet. Increased safety and expanded independence, social engagement and reduced isolation, and entertainment and mental stimulation. All of those, each of these categories can be fantastic, but can be very difficult for older adults to access. Next slide. So let's talk about a roadmap to digital empowerment for older adults. I have a quote here from Tom Camber. So he is the founder of OATS, which is Older Adults Technology Services, and Senior Planet is the curriculum that we, our curriculum partner that Learn licensed with to offer curriculum to our older adults. And Tom Camber has been working in the the field of empowering seniors through tech for the last 20 years, and he's got a lot of great insight. And his quote, which really resonated to me, was the purpose of incorporating technology into the lives of older adults is not to add stress to their lives, but rather to help them thrive. It's almost impossible not to stress them to a certain degree, but there's so much that they can benefit from that. Most older adults that I encounter are very motivated to learn and to figure this technology thing out. Next slide. So what are the best practices for tech adoption for older adults? And these can be best practices for programs or even for individuals. Many of us work with older adults as professionals, but also as family caregivers or as friends, or also sometimes ourselves, right? Because we're all adopting technology. It's changing constantly. There are new programs, new things that we want to do, new computers, new devices that we get that we still have to learn how to navigate. So a personalized approach is best always, tailoring the technology solutions to individual needs and preferences, right? What do they need to do? What are they trying to do? What's the easiest path to accomplishing that? Patience and support. Older adults need a much slower pace. As Darra was describing, the decline in executive function, that and short-term memory loss, those two particular brain functions, as they decline, add an extra layer of difficulty in using technology. So slowing it down, pacing it to older adults where they are is important. Empowerment. We encourage, how do you encourage seniors to embrace technology? The way that you encourage them is to show the benefit, to demonstrate how that can enrich their lives or make life easier. Community building, this is what Learn's Tech Ed program does. What I've seen in classes is that when people come and experience other people in the same space trying to learn the same thing, they realize that they're not alone, they're not isolated. A lot of seniors come in saying, you know, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb. The reality is that this stuff is actually very difficult. It's hard, and everybody's struggling in their own way. And they also can connect with other adults, and they can help each other. And that's a really lovely piece of the community building. And then all of us can advocate to promote systemic change for digital inclusion. There are a lot of ways to do that through your own efforts or participating in initiatives of digital, bridging that digital divide for older adults. Next slide. So what does it look like to actually sort of start in this space with an older adult? A lot of times we skip the first question, which is to ask, how do we understand what that user needs? How do we keep it from becoming too complex? A lot of times, older adults have very particular activities that they want to do on the computer. And we have to ask first. Don't assume what they need. Don't assume where they are. Try to understand what do they want to accomplish? What are they trying to do? Are they wanting to make a call, a video call? Are they wanting to access my chart, email, their basic functions like texting and even answering a call on their phone that can be difficult. How do they currently use their technology? I just had a student come into a smartphone class on Monday, and he said, I don't have a smartphone, I have a dumb phone, which I'm sure it really felt like that for him. And, you know, exploring his device sure looked like a smartphone to me. I had him turn it on, show me how you make phone calls. How do you engage with your device? He did have a smartphone, but this was the instance of a person being handed a device, not having the terminology for what the device was, and having no understanding in how to use it. Then identifying specific needs. What are they wanting to do? How can we do it from a very simplified perspective? You know, sort of the icing on top might be interests that they want to pursue. Sometimes that's a little deeper in the space, and we don't necessarily start there. That's for older adults that have already been sort of digging into technology. And what connections do they want to maintain, right? Connections being typically with family and friends and the resources that they need. And the smartphone's an absolute lifeline for that, as is email, and their home computer. Oftentimes, a lot of seniors only have a smartphone. And then how do we choose if they need a device or if they need some sort of platform to operate with? How do we help choose that and find the simplest, easiest device, easiest platform with the smallest or most shallow learning curve to get them into the space that they need to be? Next slide. Also aligning technology with a support network. So there's a double edge to our independence, right? Living independently, being independent, living on your own, staying in your home as long as possible, right? The double-edged sword is that a lot of time we're on our own when it comes to technology, right? So what a part of the process is trying to recommend tech that might be aligned with what their friends or family are already using, right? What's already used in their family or their circle. And the benefits of that is, you know, I'll have folks come in and they're thinking about updating their devices to an Apple device or an iPhone, and nobody in their family has an iPhone. And so that may not be the best course of action for that older adult. Figure out what devices others are using that they might be able to ask questions of. And you can encourage them to learn alongside family and friends. Create that organic support system. Highlight the ease of getting help when using familiar platforms. That might not be, ease might be an overstatement. I don't know if anyone on today's call has tried to help an older adult family member or friend troubleshoot tech from 1,700 miles away. I'm thinking of my mother and trying to help her figure out things with her phone or her computer, and I'm not in the same space with her. And that can be a very, very frustrating experience for everyone concerned. So ease is maybe not the best word to use in this circumstance. And then, of course, there's a desert island effect, which is what I'm talking about. If you can have readily available support, that's fantastic. But how do you foster connections? And I wish there were 20 of me, because there's sort of a bottomless pit for what we're doing with our Learn Tech Ed program. Not very many people or entities are working in this space of working with older adults. And I'm hoping that we can increase our funding, expand our programming, get into those rural communities where people are really struggling, not just with device use, but connectivity in general, not even having internet. Many people go in rural communities and sit in the parking lot of libraries and other places that have internet that they can jump onto and use in that way. Next slide. So slow and steady, right? We've talked about pacing for teaching tech, right? You don't want to over-engineer a solution. What does that mean? We can certainly provide them with all kinds of technical information and processes, right? But the reality is that a lot of times what older adults want to do is a very simple task. So don't bring complexity into a space where it's not needed. And also breaking down the learning process into smaller, more manageable steps, right? So you're building a bridge one plank at a time. And that can often start with, do you know how to turn your device on and off? Do you know how to increase your volume? Do you know where your settings is on your phone? How do you access these important things? And certainly, yes, Garth, less is more. That is very true because, you know, when you look at a smartphone, it's actually a very complicated looking space. And you can help people by simplifying what they see on their opening screen. But that's a customization that they often don't know how to do themselves. So this approach works because, as we've seen, if we've worked with older adults, overwhelm happens very quickly. And you really need to build their confidence and allow mastery of their skills, right? And they are not intrepid clickers. And I believe that we all experience this in our daily lives. I want to do a task. I can't remember how to do it. I just know I can, right? And so I start clicking and I start exploring and looking for it, right? I make mistakes. I go down the wrong path. I come back and I approach a different way. So older adults are less inclined to do that. They're afraid of making mistakes. They have a lot of fear. Next slide, Darra. So for instance, if they want to make a video call to their grandkids, right? You can start with a step-by-step, turn the device on, right? That's the step. You can master each of these skills, right? Open the app, find the app. What does it look like? Find that visual representation before you actually finally do make that video call. Next slide. Frustration-free learning experience. That's a goal. You want to have take your goals and chop them down into smaller achievable tasks, of course, celebrating victories. There's a frustration threshold. Try not to bump up against that. Recognize that it can come more quickly for older adults. So you might need to take more breaks and repetition. Repetition is your friend. They also like step-by-step guides. If you are using artificial intelligence in any aspect of your life, it's a great place to go in and ask a question of create a step-by-step guide for accessing using Zoom on a smartphone, and it'll create that guide for you to pass on to the older adult in your world. So it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Learning takes time and consistency. So learning, coming in, working with the particular activity that they're trying to do, you just consistently can help them bring that into their space. Next slide. Change doesn't happen all at once, and realistic milestones help older adults see progress. It's really important in our classes that they don't go away feeling overwhelmed, like they're at the top of their head's going to blow off. They have some kind of thing that they've learned that they can grab onto and hold on to for creating their next step into whatever it is they're trying to learn. Next step, next slide. Oh, the old devices, the ancient computers, ancient phones that come into my class. A lot of older adults, or we as children of older adults, we might pass along our device to them, right? Or they've got a device that's 10 years old, and these things do not work. I think we've all had experience with out-of-date devices or not updated devices or things that don't work, and the layer of frustration, right, that is added by old devices. They're not compatible, they're not secure, updating their devices is really important. They're less expensive things. Everything costs a fortune. I have one student that has a 15-year-old laptop that he still keeps up and running. I don't think he's going to replace it, but it still works, but it's slow. And the speed of the device or lack thereof really creates all kinds of frustration for them. If you can encourage the older adults in your life to get a new device, that is awesome. And also updating and helping them understand the importance of updating is a great thing to do. Next slide. Connecting with community, it matters, so that they don't feel unsupported and have motivation. And they can also share their learning experience and help each other and see that other people are in the same boat and struggling. They love to commiserate about their latest issue on their device in the classes that we do. It's continuous learning. It's also fantastic for their brains, social connections, and accessing up-to-date information and resources. Next slide. And so why advocate for digital inclusion for older adults? Why does that matter, right? So there are systemic barriers in place to digital inclusion for older adults. They're economic. The devices are incredibly expensive. Seniors often have a fixed income. They've actually taken away a really great program, which was the Affordable Internet Connection Service, which older adults, low-income older adults got a discount on their internet. And that program has gone away with nothing to replace it. There are infrastructure barriers. Rural, especially in underserved area, don't even have broadband access. And inadequate public Wi-Fi availability. And also public Wi-Fi can be a dangerous place for older adults to use especially for banking or anything that is financial. They can be hacked and access to their personal information. Internet connections in senior living facilities are bad, with low bandwidth, and which makes accessing the internet slow. Education barriers, there's very few digital literacy programs for seniors. They just don't exist at great numbers. And very limited. At a time, you could go into Best Buy, you could drop in and say, can you help me? All of these companies like Best Buy, Verizon's, all these entities have basically instructed, I believe, their employees, your job is to sell, not to educate. So people are turned away from sources they don't have anywhere to go to get information. And then health-related barriers. Physical barriers and cognitive barriers, cognitive decline, especially making it challenging to learn these new skills. And of course, an overarching fear of fraud, because they know someone that's been defrauded. They know someone that's fallen for a scam, or they themselves have. And so that also is a very serious barrier to tech adoption. Next slide. So how can you participate in digital inclusion initiatives? Well, right here at Learn Idaho, we have our free in-person tech ed classes. We're expanding them. We're having success in getting funding. If you ever want to participate in an initiative by volunteering with the program, you can very easily do one-on-one tech support for older adults in a one-on-one setting at a facility or at a senior center. All of these places are hungry for anyone to help them. And these are not advanced digital skills that you as an individual need. Any person that's using, anyone on this call can teach tech to an older adult. So I appreciate the time. And Darra, I'll let you take it up from here.
So that's your official invitation to join us as a volunteer, or help us identify more volunteers to help solve this digital access, digital inclusion through our own tech ed program. And I wanted to also share, for anyone who is interested in the software project that I have developed with my partner, My Data Diary. It's a product designed to digitize all information and documents for a household. And it is available. There's a free version available. You and your clients can download that and use 6 sections focused on health for free. And we do offer a discount for upgrades. So if you're interested in learning more about that software product that we've developed to help people manage the business of life in a digital way, please let me know. And this program is not designed for older adults. This one is designed primarily for caregivers and people in our age bracket using software tools and applications to manage that digital content for this increasingly digital world. And we do have an affiliate program if you're interested in building that into your business. So just so you know, there's other ways for you to engage to help people digitize their information and learn how to use technology. And that is all we have to share with you today. We'll answer any questions you have. Any questions out there? Comments?
I think it's amazing. I know my husband and I are in year 16 of helping my mother-in-law through life. So she gets confused just with the turning the television on. So this is like so very important. You guys are doing such wonderful work with us because it is very frustrating for them with the very basics of things in communication and technology of any type. Thank you guys so much for sharing this. Does anybody else have anything else you'd like to ask? I'm sure they would just love everybody to raise their hand and say, you will be a volunteer to help teach these programs, because that's how we can make it better for everybody.
And even if you don't have the time, the tips that Tina shared, right? This is every day, whether you're talking to your neighbor, your parent, whatever it is, those reminders of how important it is to really start with that very basic, do you know how to turn on your device? And the vocabulary of technology. You know, what is an app? I mean, we used app all through this presentation, and many older adults don't understand that shortcut vocabulary. They don't even understand what an application is, right? That's not part of the vocabulary. And even a click, right? A click, we all know fundamentally what a click is, but on a phone, that's moving something forward. On a computer, it's you have to engage with a mouse. And there are these very fundamental basic engagement principles that we all take for granted. And we must start with that education at the very basic level to avoid the level of frustration that causes people to disengage, either from frustration or fear. And that, to me, that's the greatest reminder for all of us, whether we're trying to help our clients through a process, asking them to engage in our website, really thinking about language and vocabulary and how to make it accessible and without fear.